Hello everybody, my name is Meliorne. Today I want to showcase my League starter for Metamorph League, a Fire Trapper, Flamethrower Trapper, Saboteur. This league I knew Metamorph was going to be a very boss-oriented league, and I played Fire Trapper in Blight. Fire Trap was very good at clearing Blights, packs, and overall the degen made it very satisfying to play. Flamethrower Trap was my obvious choice of single target this league, especially given with how Metamorphs work and the buff to boss HP. First off, let's go over the skill tree. You'll immediately notice I have two special things affecting my skill tree. I have a Glorious Vanity Jewel in my skill tree, which gives me the Corrupted Soul Keystone. The Corrupted Soul Keystone offers me 20% of maximum life as extra energy shield. As a result of this, I am effectively hybrid. With over almost 7,000 life and almost 3,000 energy shield, I have an over 9,500 effective health pool, making me very tanky. This Glorious Vanity Jewel cost me about 100 chaos early 1 week into the league. Mine is not that very special. You mostly just want the Doriani, and it affected my starting points so badly I've had to reallocate it just to take a shorter route. I stopped with this one because this one was fairly satisfying with 5% energy shield here, 11% spell damage, 10% spell damage, dodge spells, 2% life, and this node which gives me 33% spell damage. Overall, 50% spell damage. If this was better, I would take these nodes. Otherwise, just get a Glorious Vanity Jewel in the name of Doriani. Finally, I just want to recommend when leveling this build, of course, you would take these Trap and Mind Damage nodes, and you'd level up by regularly as a Fire Trapper or Flamethrower Trapper, just going through the tree, taking life nodes, taking life nodes, taking these critical life nodes, and then going up to the top area and then the bottom area. But I digress. Moving on. The second thing I'm sure you've noticed is that I run a very new jewel. This jewel was introduced in this latest patch with the Awakener, the Thread of Hope. Um, the radius is obviously variable based on the stat, meaning its size can change depending on what jewel rolls you get. This jewel can roll from small ring to very large ring, and of course comes with a negative resistance modifier. I use this jewel to take phase acrobatics, and this node, silent steps, reducing damage taken from blinded enemies. So I use this jewel to take phase acrobatics because as a user of Corrupted Soul, I do not want to take acrobatics to reduce my effective life pool. I also felt this was very effective in that I would save some points. However, you do have to spend 2 points here, which in my opinion is fine as I do get the bonus of silent steps. Going north of the tree, I take high explosives, which is necessary for trap build, and clever construction. As you can see from my tree, I have plenty of life from here, the shadow hunt ranger area, the ranger shadow area, the shadow area, the shadow witch area, the witch area, the witch area, the Templar area, and more so, even more of the Templar area. Um, I actually took a lot. Going over my tree, you'll notice that I am Elemental Overload. I am playing Fire Trap and Flamethrower Trap. As a result, I felt that for clearing, I wanted to buff Fire Trap's base damage as well as its damage over time. So I felt that I didn't want to go critical strikes with this build, which was very fortunate of me considering this build uses a lot of points on life. To be very tanky, I'm currently level 95 in Metamorph League, so I couldn't go crit with this build. And after checking POB for a bit, it'd be a waste of investment considering I have two links to deal with clearing and single target. As a result, I do not need the damage. I take Mental Rapidity just for cast speed and a bit of mana regen. I take AoE just for Fire Trap, more AoE for Fire Trap. This is just padding. I get the 1% life regen here because it gives strength and it gives 10% energy shield, which works nice with my build. Finally, I go up north to get Heart of Flame, which is just even more damage with the 6% fire penetration. Overall, the most outstanding aspects of the tree is the Thread of Hope and the Glorious Vanity Jewel. Once I get Master Sapper just to get frenzy charges. And for my jewels are fairly basic. This is just trap and life. I don't really care so much about the burning damage, however, it was very nice. I picked up this, most of my jewels are very cheap, aside from with the most expensive one being Glorious Vanity. I picked up all my jewels early on in the league and divined them myself. These ones were about 20 chaos, although but they may be more expensive now that I've checked. This one was trap, area damage, and life. This one was actually particularly very cheap, being only three useful mods. The strength and intelligence does not matter as much. This one was only 5 chaos as it's only spell damage, life, and mana. One unique aspect of my build is you'll notice I don't run any mana nodes on my tree. I don't take Arcane Will. I don't take Deep Thoughts as a trapper because I use Fire Trap as single target and Flamethrower Trap as I use Fire Trap as my clear skill and Flamethrower Trap as my single target. I don't have to spam Flamethrower Trap. Rather, this build is more so in the hit and run style of build, so I don't need a large mana pool to sustain that. Moving on, this jewel here is just more trap area damage and life, and this one here is trap area damage, damage over time for fire trap, mana and life. So I suppose I do use mana jewels to help my build a bit, but overall only 2 jewels. And once again, no mana on my tree whatsoever. Moving on to my gear. All of my gear was fairly cheap as I bought it early on in the league. However, I want to note the prices have changed now, and I will show you any upgrades that you could potentially make if you were to pursue this build. Starting off with the chess piece, this chess piece I bought for 5 chaos in the beginning of the league. It has very high life because it has a special incursion modifier of Guatalitzis, which gives me over 110 life, percentage life, so even more life than what I had on the tree. And I bought this chess piece because it had 3 suffix modifiers. More importantly, it has a mod of gain percentage of my life as extra energy shield, which pairs in very nicely with the Corrupted Soul Keystone from the Of Doriani Glorious Vanity Timeless Jewel. Besides that, just go for resistances, and if you can, 6-link it yourself like I did. This took me about 500 fusings, which honestly was pretty lucky, 3rd day into the league. This houses my Fire Trap, which is in a 6-link. I have a level 21 Fire Trap. I bought this for about 20 chaos because there's so many 21 gems floating around the league, and Fire Trap is not a meta skill, so it's very cheap for me to play. The 21 is very important and gives a ton of damage. It's linked with Trap and Mind damage, Combustion, Controlled Destruction, and Efficacy. Combustion is very helpful as the minus 19% fire resistance will apply to Flamethrower Trap. For my 6th link, I use Swift Assembly. Like I said with Elemental Overload, I plan to scale both the damage over time and the on-hit effect of Fire Trap. However, because I didn't Cluster Trap reduces the damage over time component, but only and increases the on-hit effect, I didn't want to use Cluster Trap. Similarly, burning damage only scaled the damage over time component of Fire Trap, and so I felt that the good middle ground was Swift Assembly. Honestly, this was the perfect choice for me as it increases trap throwing speed, which helps clear speed immensely as you throw more traps per second, so you can target more packs per second. And additionally, the additional traps provides for greater area coverage, and overall it is a 60% more damage multiplier against single target foes, which is very nice. And combined with low mana multiplier, it makes my fire traps mana cost quite easy to sustain. Moving on, I have a Flamethrower Trap setup in a 6-link glove, a pseudo 6-link glove. You'll notice immediately right off the bat, it is a Shaper glove with 2 socketed gem supports. I use advanced traps and faster casting. As a build, the only cast speed I have on my tree was from Mental Rapidity, so this is a very effective damage support for Flamethrower Trap. As a trap, this trap scales off cast speed, which is very nice. So once again, it is a pseudo 6-link with life and mana. Level 21 Flamethrower Trap, I bought this for about 5 chaos, about 2 days into the league. Once again, very cheap for not being meta. I have Trap and Mind damage support linked to it. I have Elemental Focus because my Fire Trap is providing me the burn for my combustion and the burn capability of my Flamethrower Trap for the 25% more damage. Finally, I use a Wakened Fire Penetration support. You'll notice the EXP value is actually very low, almost 0%, and that's because I only bought this about an hour before making this video. Before that, I was using a 20/20 Fire Penetration gem, which is honestly roughly the same percent damage. Let's go towards my helmet. So the only thing special about my helmet is that it has a Flamethrower Trap, has 2 additional flames enchant. This enchant allows me to do 50% more damage with Flamethrower Trap. It is perhaps one of the most underrated enchantments in the game for one of the strongest skills in the game. This helmet I bought for 1 chaos and crafted it myself. The base does not matter. This was item level 81. Item level generally does not matter. However, you want to get the best stats you can. And one more special thing is that I used a Scorched Fossil to craft this from Delve So it has the of the underground suffix, which nearby enemies have -9 fire resistance, offering a more damage multiplier. Before crafting this, this was 70 life with that mod. I only recrafted this about 2 days ago. Once again, this helmet cost me about 1 chaos to buy and maybe like 20 chaos to craft myself. So aim for life, mana, resistance, and obviously the delve mod itself. Moving on to my boots. Um, oh, before that, sorry about that. The gems in my helmet are Orb of Storms, Arcane Surge, Link to, Curse on Hit, and Flammability. Because I am a trapper and I take Elemental Overload, I cannot proc Elemental Overload with crits from my traps. As a result, I need another skill to activate and actually crit enemies to activate Elemental Overload. For that, I use Orb of Storms. Orb of Storms is ideal for me because I have a lot of area of effect on my tree. It hits very fast, it has a very fast cast time of 0.27 seconds, and it allows me to proc Arcane Surge for more mana for my build, cast speed for Flamethrower Trap, as well as more spell damage, which affects Fire Trap and Flamethrower Trap. It also links to Curse on Hit and Flammability, allowing for a very, very big DPS steroid. Moving on to my boots and my auras, I have in a 4 link, I have Flame Dash, which gives me mobility, Bear Trap, which gives a 15% more damage multiplier to enemies hit by all my traps, such as Flamethrower Trap. And more importantly, it gives a 80% less movement speed debuff. So when enemies are stuck inside the middle of my Flamethrower Trap, they will take maximum damage. Finally, I have Summon Skitterbots, which is necessary for trap builds. It's just more trap damage. It also provides Chilling and Shock, which is very nice. And I have Herald of Ash. Herald of Ash is only 25% reserved mana, and it gives 13% spell damage. It's better than Anger in that it reserves less mana, and because my Flamethrower Trap and Fire Trap are so high, the base damage added from Anger is actually not that great. Because I use Skitterbots, my enemies are chilled and shocked, and if you notice from my Ascendency, I take Explosives Expert, which means shocked enemies take 80% have 80% increased crit chance, which is perfect for my Orb of Storms, which means I'm always critting for elemental overload. Finally, because enemies are chilled from skitterbots, I also get 10% elemental penetration, which adds to flamethrower trap, which is even more damage. You'll notice from my build that I do not take chain reaction, and that's because when you have chain reaction, your master sapper is actually unable, or rather, less reliable in generating frenzy charges. Because it's only 15%, and I don't run Tinkerskin, it's more effective to take explosives expert and not run chain reaction, so all my traps don't proc immediately. The cooldown recovery speed for traps is absolutely negligible because I run advanced traps in my glove, which already give me over 100% recovery speed for my flamethrower trap. For Ascendency, take Perfect Crime, Pyromaniac for the regen, and Born in Shadows. Born in Shadows is very nice as it offers 10% reduced damage taken from blinded enemies and gives blind. Finally, it pairs well with Silent Steps for an additional reduced 5% damage taken. Overall, the clear speed of this build is quite very fast. You are mostly one-tapping mobs with your fire trap, and usually using 3 flamethrower traps, a bear trap, and an arcane storms or over storms, you will one-shot most bosses. One important thing to note is you want advanced traps on your glove with trap throwing speed. There are 2 varying advanced trap mods, one with trap damage and trap throwing speed. Higher trap throwing speed allows you to throw more traps in less time, which is effectively a more damage, more multiplier for DPS. This is why I don't use slave drivers, as slave drivers would require a lot of cast speed to mitigate the reduced trap throwing speed from the gloves. In exchange, what you get is much faster and much smoother clear speed, as you can easily flame dash, throw a trap, flame dash, throw another trap, and clear map that way. For stats on my boots, the enchant does not matter. It's mostly just high life and movement speed, and you prioritize very high life just because you're converting it to energy shield. My belt is nothing special. It is a Stygian vise with a life jewel in it, with onslaught and phasing on kill, which honestly is a very weak part of my build, and I have considered upgrading it. However, the belt itself has life, mana, and resistances. Once again, nothing special. I crafted this belt myself. It took me roughly 25 chaos in scours and alchemies to craft, and I master modded another resistance on it. If I had one more stat, I would choose energy shield. as I'm effectively hybrid. However, because I don't take energy shield nodes, life is way more valuable to me. Moving on to my rings, I bought these rings very early on and they were very cheap when I bought them. However, they may seem expensive now. My first ring is a Incursion Ring using with tier 1 life and the percent increased maximum life modifier, make it very, very high life ring. It has flat mana because I don't have any mana on my tree. And finally, it has dexterity, which allows me to hit the dex requirement for Fire Trap. And of course, it has resistances, and I crafted mana regeneration myself. My build uses a lot of rares. As a result, I can get a lot of mana because I don't care about armor or energy shield or evasion, generally speaking. My second pair of gloves is more special, or rather unique, in that it also uses an incursion mod. However, it uses the Zopex incursion mod for mana. As a result, this ring has tier 1 mana and flat mana regeneration. As you've noticed, my build does not run clarity. By not running clarity, I suffer reduced mana regeneration. Ignoring the enchant from my boots, however, the flat mana is scaled by regeneration from my rings and my amulet, making this mod very effective. This mod alone, this mod alone gives me almost 19, 19 mana regeneration. That is ignoring Orb of Storms, which boosts that up much higher.
Hello.
Finally, it has simple resistances, not very high resistance modifiers as I crafted it myself, and Aspect of the Spider. Aspect of the Spider is very important for this build as it is essentially reserving the rest of my mana. I am reserving 95% of my mana with Herald of Ash, Skitterbots, and Aspect of the Spider, but Aspect of the Spider reduces the movement speed of mobs, which pairs very nicely with Bear Trap. When Bear Trap and Aspect of the Spider hit the mob, they are taking 15% more damage from Bear Trap and 15% more damage from Aspect of the Spider. They are also moving less, meaning my Flamethrower Trap will hit them more, and I'll deal more damage overall. It is very nice to have. My amulet is nothing special. It is fire damage, life, and once again, it uses the incursion mod Zopex for more mana regen, so I don't have to take any mana on my tree, nor have to run clarity. The resistance is very low, it does not matter, and I put mana regeneration on it, because I don't need resistances as I run all rares in my items. I have the freedom of movement allocated for movement speed, as well as dodge and phasing on kill, which is very nice for my hit and run build, as I can run through packs with them ignoring me. However, feel free to take Arsonist for more damage and life regeneration. Overall, this amulet was about maybe 3 chaos. This ring, maybe about 15 chaos, and this ring perhaps was the more expensive of them. I bought this for 10 chaos, but my friends have told me it is way more than that. Moving on. My Scepter, I bought this once again early onto the league. This uses also an Incursion mod, so I hope you notice that with my gear, as Incursion mods are very cheap early onto the league and very strong, providing tier 1 stats. This one provides tier 1 fire damage, and I bought this one for about 30 chaos, but it came with fire spell skill gems, which makes this very strong. The other mods are not so much as important, but I do have mana, which is nice, attack speed, and cold damage, which is nothing. I master craft attack speed for Flamethrower Trap. Most importantly, the most important mod is Fire Spell Skill Gems, as that affects Flamethrower Trap and Fire Trap very strongly. In a 3-link, I have Shield Charge linked to faster attacks and Fortify. With over 9,500 health pool and Fortify, this makes me very tanky. Moving on, my shield is perhaps very strong. This was 60 chaos when I bought it. It came corrupted. If I did not buy it corrupted, a similar shield may run you for 2 to 3 exalts. In a 3-link, I have cast when damage taken linked to Steel Skin and a level 1 Wave of Conviction. It is level 1 because if you had a level 20 Wave of Conviction and cast when damage taken procced, you would die in Reflect maps just from the damage it dealt. Overall, in shields, you were looking for life and +1 fire spell skill gems and any other stat. Spell damage, of course, is nice, and high resistances are nice too. And mine had high cast speed, which is very nice for Flamethrower Trap. Overall, when I was gearing, this build was very easy to level with, as I leveled with Fire Trap since level 12 from the Shadow area, and took Saboteur immediately. In terms of gearing, it was also very easy. When I was first starting out, I used a Searing Touch on a 4-link for 1 Chaos, and I used this chess piece as well for about 5 Chaos. When I upgraded, I also had a 6-link Searing Touch, which I bought on day 2 or day 3, I'm not sure, for 1 Exalt, because once again, 6 link uniques are very common in Metamorph. So on day 2, I had a 6 link Searing Touch and a 5 Chaos Chest Piece, which carried me to level 90. In my gloves, I had a 5 link Shaper Gloves without faster casting, which is honestly good enough, considering that Searing Touch with its +2 fire gems did carry me for most of maps. Afterwards, I upgraded to my Scepter and Shield. And finally, in terms of more upgrades for gear of what you can pursue if you want to do this build, you can upgrade your gloves to get +1 socketed of AoE gems, which is effectively 9 or 12% more damage on your Flamethrower Trap. You can upgrade your amulet. This one has the Arsonist node allocated, but more importantly, this amulet has mana regeneration, life, and +1 fire skill gems. The other mods do not necessarily matter. The +1 fire skill gems applies to Flamethrower Trap and Fire Trap, and because my build is not crit, I feel like I have to focus on scaling damage through other ways, and this was the most effective, as I cannot use crit multi. Finally, for Flasks, you use Cinder Swallow because you ignite enemies for more damage, and finally, you actually enjoy the recover life, mana, and energy shield instantly as you're a hybrid build. I use 15% damage taken from hits as life during Flask effect because 50% of damage goes through my energy shield, which means whenever I'm hit, I am always leeching life, which is very beneficial. If my energy shield is not broken, I am essentially healing or taking 15% less damage. I run a Alchemist Quicksilver of Adrenaline for increased movement speed, a Chemist Quartz Flask to remove curses and also give me more dodge, and a Jade Flask of Heat. This evasion pairs very nicely with Wicked Ward, which after 2 seconds, essentially my energy shield will start recharging and it cannot be stopped, giving me a moment of very high tankiness. I use a Catalyzed Eternal Flask of Staunching because half of the damage is going through my life. Generally, I can use this without wasting the flask. Finally, for the last improvement to this build, this is not necessary and is purely luxury, but this is my personal goal of the league, and I feel like it helps very much in maps. It gives me a bit faster map clear, is Tailwind Boots. The mana regeneration from the previous boots was not necessary. The fact that this build runs very low mana regeneration is not a concern for me, as I have enough to sustain my fire trap, and Flamethrower Trap generally does not use a lot of mana for 3 traps due to the cooldown. However, once again, the biggest improvement you can make for this build is Tailwind. By using Tailwind, whenever I crit with Orb of Storms, and I must crit to activate Elemental Overload, I get Tailwind. What Tailwind provides is, I get 10% increased action speed. What that means is, I can throw 10% more fire traps. I move 10% faster. Well, this is very nice for clearing, as when I'm actually mapping, I barely notice the actual trap throwing animation of my character and makes trapping very smooth. Overall, for my boots, because I use all rares, I'm overcapped for many resistances, so I don't necessarily need the resistances for my boots, and because I'm very tanky, I don't necessarily need the life, which allows me to get Tailwind Boots. Once again, these are very expensive. These could cost about 5 exalts. Not necessary, but if you do get them, you can get the very bare bones version like I have, which is just movement speed, life, and tailwind. Sorry, I'm just collecting my thoughts. Overall, this build is very. Oh, one more thing. For the enchantments on your boots, boot enchantments don't matter very much. It's pretty much quality of life and what you want. Um, I assume the best one would be this one, which is 10% penetration if you haven't killed recently. For those of you who don't know how this works is, if your traps kill a mob, you don't actually lose your 10% elemental penetration. So Flamethrower Trap is always getting that benefit. One caveat with this build, however, that I do not like is that if you use Fire Trap and the damage over time portion of the skill kills a mob, you actually lose this enchant, which doesn't make it great for clearing, but against single target bosses like the Awakener, it becomes very effective with Flamethrower Trap as it results in 10% more damage. Overall, this is a very tanky build with Fortify, 9.5k life, Phase Acrobatics, some block chance, blind, reduced damage, very high regeneration, Wicked Ward, and a very high life pool. And of course, its hit and run style, play style, and mobility. I recommend other people play it, as Fire Trap and Flamethrower Trap are non-meta. These items were very cheap when I first started. It's very easy to level, very strong, and it may be what you're looking for. It provides very strong boss killing capabilities, moderate clear speed, and more importantly for me, it can kill all new content. This is my build. Meliorne out.